straight down the middle. Then it started to hook just a wee bit. And that's when my caddy lost sight of it. That little white pellet has never been found to this day.
Hi, this is Kelly Elbin with Golf Life Navigators. Thanks for joining us for another edition of Voices of the Game, where we spend a few moments with some outstanding golf media, talk about some special stories, memories of people and places in our great game. And it is an honor and a privilege to be joined today by ESPN's Tom Rinaldi. Tom, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Kelly.
Appreciate it. Tom Rinaldi with ESPN since 2002. You see him on College Game Day. You see him covering tennis. You see him covering golf, the NBA, and, of course, the human interest stories that you're so well known for, Tom. A bit of a man of all seasons, huh?
Yeah, generalist is what we'll call it. Yeah, whatever they ask me to do.
Exactly. And you do it unbelievably well, Tom.
Very kind, Kelly.
Thank you. Tom, golf obviously has been something that you've been very close to. You know the people very well. You obviously have covering major championships. How about a thought or two, an anecdote or two that may stand out from your time in golf?
Here's a story, Kelly, that I know I will hold close for the rest of my career. And it happened a while ago with one of the biggest names in the sport, just as he was becoming one of the biggest names. Rory McIlroy, as we all think back to 2011 and having the commanding lead at Augusta heading into Sunday, and the thought that he was likely going to win his first major championship as a prodigy. We know what happened that day and how difficult the day was. He ultimately shot 80 and finished far back. Everybody recalls the tee shot at 10,
absolutely,
hitting a golf ball where no one had ever hit it before.
Over by the cabins to the left.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we can also see the famous image, which is replayed all the time, of the poor tee shot on 13 and him ducking his head and putting it on top of his hands, resting on top of the driver.
Yeah.
If you think back, Kelly, to the way the media handled people that did not come to the press room at Augusta National back then, the club has since changed some of the logistics. Mm-hmm. Players would be brought up to the very famous tree behind the clubhouse,
right.
an iconic tree.
Absolutely.
And they would face a phalanx of media. McIlroy has just shot 80, what he thought would be the greatest day of his young professional life, and by himself faced probably 12 or 14 minutes of questions. And if memory serves me correctly, and I'm paraphrasing here,
sure,
a European columnist asked him, among these questions, a query that sounded like, what does it feel like to let down your nation? He's just over 20 years old at the time.
What a powerful question.
And he answered every single question that was asked of him. There were dozens of think pieces written about him, Kelly, which I'm sure you remember.
Yeah.
Anyone who covers the sport remembers. The scar tissue will keep him from ever winning again. This is a burden which he will never shake off. This is something that you'd never wish on anybody, but in particular someone who hasn't won a major yet. He may never overcome it. The very next major championship,
He wins.
U.S. Open, Congressional, he wins in record-setting fashion. He hugs Jerry at the edge of the green. He lifts up the trophy. And in my work at ESPN, we're in so many great spots in terms of access, and we're able to get him for the Sunday conversation. So we're waiting, and I write him a note. I don't know Rory that well at the time, and in the note, I do two things. I thank him for the time that he's going to spend with us, but I also thank him for teaching our son, who at the time is 7 years old, a lesson about the two different definitions of being a champion. The first is how you handle defeat and disappointment. Are you responsible and accountable Do you stand tall in the hardest moment and answer the toughest question? Do you answer every question asked of you, even those which are by any definition harsh or impolite, but do so with grace and candor? And do you fulfill the other definition? Beat everybody, get the trophy, lift it up, and act with similar graciousness. So in this note, his life has just blown up. I'll never forget he had something like 500 text messages on his phone by the time he got to us, which wasn't that long after he had won.
Right.
So I give him the note and I say, if you never read it, I completely understand. If you get a quiet moment, I just wanted to give you a note. And he took the note from me. I see him a few weeks later at Wimbledon. He is the Beatles there.
Absolutely.
And the All England Club really isn't prepared. They don't have security there to see how he's being received or reacted to. And there's a massive media presence around him, a phalanx of cameras, etc. And he sees me. I make no move toward him to interview him or anything. And he cuts right toward me, comes up to me, gives me a hug, and says, "Thanks so much for your note. Is your son here?" Our son was with us, but not on the grounds that day. But the fact that a guy with 500 text messages on his phone, and this isn't surprising to any of us who have been around Rory McIlroy and know him, but in that moment, to respond with that specificity to one of 1,000 dispatches wishing him well and congratulating him on a great achievement, that he would say that to me. When I saw Jerry McIlroy's dad, the next time, I pulled him aside for a moment, and I just said, "Jerry, whenever you publish the book, the pamphlet, the column on how you raise a young man like that, please let me know, because I'll be among your first readers." And I think that sometimes when we get caught up in wins and loss and we're so close to things, we can lose sight of the grace with which some of the greatest athletes, in particular in golf,
yes,
carry the mantle, and how much that instructs me, somebody decades older than Rory,
yes,
about how to try to handle the disappointment and defeats that no one sees in my own life.
Amazing.
Let alone the ones that the world sees, judges, measures, gauges, writes about. And if I can have some modicum of that grace, I'll know I'm really learning something from the sports I cover.
What a wonderful story. And even at that age, at that tender age of 20.
Just over 20 years old at the time.
What an old soul at that age.
And still is.
And still is.
And he's not somebody that I see all the time. I'm not out week after week like a lot of the folks that cover the sport who I respect so much. But I will forever, when I see him, when I hear him, when I speak with him, that is an absolute touchstone moment for me. Not only about Rory, but about the game of golf.
A special story about a very special young man from an extraordinarily special ESPN reporter, Tom Rinaldi. Thank you so much for sharing this story with us.
Thanks for having me, Kelly.